Guys, what is going on? My skin's changed. Things are going on. There's flashy stuff behind me. There's something that's online. What in the world? I know what happened. Boomer's gone science. Yeah, guys, you heard it right. We, Dr. Science Boomer PhD, we have gone science today. We're going to spend a couple episodes with you getting into the technical part of Slimefun. Welcome back to my series here on the survival server on Fanatic MC, talking about Slimefun. And you have to forgive me here. This chair is a little creaky, but we're going to play ahead anyways. So we're going to spend some time talking about today electricity and Slimefun and a lot of the different parts of this, and hopefully explain this to you in a way you can understand. I want to dumb it down. I don't want to insult your intelligence. I just do want to tell you what all these things do, how they all interact, and what you're actually looking. I'm going to kind of lift up here a little bit. What you're actually looking at here is the rudimentary beginning of a dust farm that is 100% automatic. One of the chests on my right is full of cobble. Gets pulled into the first machine. It looks like a furnace, but it's actually an ore grinder. From there, it gets turned into gravel. That gravel, like we used to do manually, now goes into the gold pan, which is a brown box. The gold pan then hits it into one of four things. Kind of like if you were going, like I said last time, you were a miner 49er back in the 1800s going to San Francisco looking for gold. It's going to produce iron nuggets. It's going to produce flint. It's going to produce clay. And the one thing that we really want out of there is sifted ore. The sifted ore goes to the blue box, which is a dust washer, which gives me the 9 different dusts that we use in Slimefun. 2 boxes to the left of that is that little bluish grayish box, which is actually a trash can. Currently, I'm setting the flint, the clay, and the iron nuggets there. I know I said I wanted to save iron nuggets. I didn't have enough time and resources to create another advanced output node, so for now we're going to trash them. It's okay. I've got plenty of iron. To either side of those trash cans are capacitors with that little green light that you just saw go up and down. That we'll explain more in detail. And then the other ones that you see have to do with cargo networks. So this episode is going to focus more on the electrical part of what each part of the electricity does and how these 3 machines go. The next episode that we're going to do, and these might be a little bit shorter, so that way maybe I can do 2 of these relatively quick for you, get them out within 48 hours or less of each other, maybe even 24. The other one is going to be the network we're going to focus on. And we'll get into a lot more of those machines. We're not going to touch on the entire GPS network. Just to create this alone probably took 2.5 to 3 hours of nonstop grinding. And I'll be honest, I even had to go purchase some stuff from another store, some of the dust, simply because the grinding was taking so long and so tedious. I kind of said, you know what, I want to get an episode out for you guys. I promised we were going to get into the technical stuff of Slimefun, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's start with the electricity here. I actually kind of need my bar back. Where's my guide? And I kind of changed my skin today. And for tomorrow, it's more of like a 1970s science teacher type thing. It's okay. And then I realized after I started, I put one of my pens for my pocket protector on my sleeve. So we're going to consider that instead one of those adapters for like a thermometer versus a pen. So I have a red pen in my pocket. But anyway, we're going to get back into the guide here. So underneath electricity and energy, I've unlocked almost everything in here. We're going to focus on probably 5 different things to start with. And then we'll expand as time allows. First thing we're going to talk about here is the energy regulator. And you can see it is a little bit expensive to craft these things. Damascus steel ingots have a lot to them. They've got steel ingots, which if you look at steel, is iron, carbon, and iron. And on carbon is based off of 8 coal, like we talked about previously. Remember, you can always click down until you get to the basic item and the machine that you have to use to craft that. So 8 coal in a compressor, give me carbon. Then I take iron dust and carbon, put it in a smeltery to give me the steel ingot. Then we take steel, some more iron, and another carbon into a smeltery to make the Damascus steel ingot. And then the other 4 are silver ingots, which you simply take 4 dust, put them in a smeltery, we have our 4 steel ingots. And then an electric motor. So what is an energy regulator? Well, without one, your energy network will not function, or at least not function correctly. So for example, in this network, all right, I have 3 different items: the ore grinder, the gold pan, and the dust washer. They all require different amounts of energy. I also have a power source, which is the coal generator. So let's start with the coal generator. We'll come back to the regulator in just a brief moment. The coal generator generates 16 Js per second. We're just going to call them joules just to make it easy. That's probably what it means. It has a buffer of 64 joules, meaning it can store 64 joules worth of energy. It creates 16 joules per second. In other words, it can store 4 seconds worth of energy. Not much, especially if the power goes out. Now this one runs off of coal, so let's look inside of it. Currently I have no coal in there, which means all of my machines have stopped functioning. We're going to take out a couple stacks of coal and we're going to put it in here. You're going to see now the energy regulator currently was at a negative number. It was at negative 371 joules. Okay. In other words, these machines were all asking for power, but there was no power being generated on the network. As this coal generator continues to burn off coal, it's creating electricity. And it's going to generate electricity at a certain rate. However, every machine requires electricity at a different rate. So for example, if we look up, again, coal generator generates 16 per second. We need to find the ore grinder needs 12. So if I'm only running the ore grinder at 12 and the coal is generating 16, in theory I'm ahead by 4. But you'll see in the background above it, I'm still at a negative. All right, we've got to get more power generated than the machines actually require. If I go to the gold pan, it requires 2, so now we're at 14. And then if I go to the dust washer, it requires 6, so it requires 20 joules per second. Now the thing is, with a coal generator, it's supposed to only generate 16 per second. It does have a 64K buffer, which allows me to actually slightly get ahead of the demand. Now if I were to add another machine to this, the odds are, even if it was only another gold pan, now I'm generating 18 per second. It's got a 4-second buffer within a matter of time, or sorry, it's got a 64 joule buffer. Within a matter of time, that buffer would go negative. And now if you notice, my regulator hasn't gotten above 0. So are all the machines running? Let's find out. Okay, well, there is enough power to keep the ore grinder going. There is enough power to keep the gold pan going. Nothing has made it into the dust washer yet. In other words, right now, some of this stuff being generated is not sifted ore. So here's how it's able to gain ground. Remember I said that the ore grinder needs 12 joules per second. The dust washer needs 2. I'm sorry, the gold pan needs 2 and the dust washer needs 4. That's 18. But the dust washer is finally running. It's not running constantly. It only runs when sifted ore gets in there. So now it's stopped. The regulator is hanging pretty even. Now it's moving its way back up slightly, slight down. So maybe there's another one in there. Let's take a look. Yep, there is another one in there. If there's nothing in this dust washer, this regulator number will continue to get closer to 0 until it becomes a positive number. If I were to overload the system with more and more equipment, it will not run because not enough power is being generated. Now that we're below 64, I'm pretty sure that one of these machines might stop for a brief moment. Now they're all kind of running. We're at negative 90. It looks like they're all running. Although they might hold up here, they might stop. Again, it's using that full 64 joule buffer. So technically, will I need 18 per second? I have a 64 joule buffer, which means I'm down 2 per second. I have a 32-second buffer. If more power is not generated within 32 seconds, one of these machines will stop running. Now we're hanging right past that edge, so I got a hunch that one of these is going to stop shortly, or at least slow down. Where are we at? So we're at the full buffer, but you wonder, well, how is it still running then? Because technically we should be out of power. We also have two capacitors stored on the network, which are drawing power from the coal generator to store. Now, what is a capacitor? Let's use this in basic terms. It is very similar in function to a battery. Now, a battery takes chemicals, and that chemical reaction is released in a form of static electricity. Capacitors store that static electricity and release it when the equipment calls for it. So it is in a way kind of like a battery backup. Some power is in here. Now there is a function in Slimefun, and I didn't think of this until just now, where I can use a tool to tell me how much of that capacitor is full, how much power is actually in there and being drawn from it. In other words, I can actually go beyond the negative capacity of this generator and still have equipment running because there is some power stored over in there in those two capacitors. Getting back to the regulator, what the regulator does, if only this machine is running that requires 12 joules per second, it is going to slow down the rate at which electricity is released, and then the capacitors will start to store the remainder until they're capped off. If the capacitors are fully capped off and all the equipment running uses less than what's being generated, it's wasted electricity. As more machines come online, the regulator increases the rate in which electricity is spread amongst all the machines until it gets above. Then it also draws power back from the capacitors. If the capacitors run out and all of these are empty, running, then we can overload and overdraw the generator to where some things will stop. Now, right now, they're still running. Even though these are on red, you'll see three colors, red, yellow, and green. There is a functionality within Slimefun, and I will try to have that ready for the next episode for you. We might pull that off the SkyGrid server just to show that to you because I have much more power over there. But we have enough power that even though this is red, there is still some power potentially in there. Now, right now, this is getting really close to zero, which is a great sign. But I wanted to see it get over because I wanted you to see these capacitors change color. Now, if I were to stop all three of these machines, the regulator will send all the power to the capacitors and fill them up until they are full. Then that extra power simply just becomes wasted power. Don't worry about the status online. That actually has to do with the cargo network. And like I said, we'll get into that next episode. So there are a number of different types of power generators as well as capacitors. We'll start with the capacitors. The small energy capacitor can hold up to 128 joules. So if all three of those machines were running at 18 joules per second, my regulator is going to ramp up until the generator is full. Then it will pull from its reserve, and then it will pull from the capacitor's reserve. I have 128 joule capacity. If I'm down 2 joules per second, that gives me 64 seconds worth of backup. If I go to the medium side, look at this, and I'll have essentially 4 minutes and 16 seconds of backup. If I go to the big one, look at that, I got a whopping 512 seconds or over 8 minutes. The large one, this is approaching boomer size. This is good. 4,096 seconds of capacity, so roughly an hour backup at a drain of 2 joules per second. But no, we got to go boomer size, baby. Carbonado capacitors. This is what I run on SkyGrid. You can see almost a full day's worth of backup if I'm pulling an extra 2 joules per second. Now that's just this setup. So if I had a carbonado capacitor that got completely full, I could actually shut off that generator and take 65, what was that number again? Yeah, it took 65,536 and divide that by 18. That's how many seconds I could run those three. Look at us. We got a capacitor that's now full. Because at least one of these machines isn't running. So far the dust washer isn't running. The other ones are going fine. Apparently we have not generated any sifted ore for a while, and so that extra electricity has now been stored in the capacitor. Hopefully that gives you a rough idea on how this works. Now, as far as energy generation, my preference is to go solar. Now, I've started with coal because I have so much of it stored below me in my storage units. There's like 9 double chests worth. I don't have all the other resources put together to go solar yet, but what I'm going to start working towards as we build through this series, we will start with plain solar and work our way. Most likely we'll start with the advanced solars. We'll get up to the Carbonata, which is a good one, but energized. This is boomer size, baby. 256 joules per second during the day, 128 at night, and requires no fuel. So at night, this is 8 times better than one coal generator during the day at 16, and it requires no fuel. All of my generators in SkyGrid are currently solar. I probably have about 15 or 16 actually placed. I just need that much power. Hence, on SkyGrid, I'm going to work towards going nuclear, and then we'll do it here. To get to the nuclear power, that thing generates an insane amount. So let's look at some of the other power generators on here. All right, we have magnesium power. Now, magnesium dust is probably the most useless thing in Slimefun unless you are powering the magnesium generator. It gives a little bit more than double a coal generator. It's not bad, especially if you have a lot of magnesium and salt lying around. It's a good generator. However, long-term sustainability, it doesn't contain enough power to really get things going. We'll come back to the envelopes. Let's see. So we want to go to page 3. I don't think there's any more power generators in there. No. All right, so page 3. The nuclear reactor, I need 48 levels. I haven't unlocked it. If memory serves, it generates, I want to say, it's over 8,000 joules per second, if I remember right, and it has a backup buffer of 60, essentially a Carbonata capacitor is a battery backup. Now, going even bigger, the Nether Star reactor, I believe, hang on, I think, now I remember, the nuclear is 512, the Nether Star reactor is 1,024. I'm almost positive on that, or it's double the Nether Star, it's one of the two. I really should unlock that for you. But this is where ultimately, if you have the power needs that I do on SkyGrid, that we're going to go to is either nuclear reactor or the Nether Star. Now, I did miss a couple other reactors. Let's go back. I don't know if I have them completely unlocked. There's a lava generator. Here we go. I have one of them. So level 1, I believe, is 24. It's either 20 or 24 joules per second. It's got a nice buffer. Level 2 is 40. Now, there is a way to automatically sustain the lava generators where you never put input into it. And that's through using a crucible. Crucible will take empty buckets in cobblestone and turn it into buckets of lava, and you can use a network to transfer it right into the lava generator. So it is a completely self-sustained generation of electricity. It's 2.5 times as powerful as a coal generator. Is it boomer size? No. But actually I do run, or I was running at one point, a lava generator. I think I've actually taken it out of use now. But they're not bad. If you've got a small amount of power that you need, the lava generator is great with a crucible because it's self-sustaining. You simply send the empty buckets back. All you need is a cobblestone generation source. What else do we have in here? Nope. Androids, we'll talk about those later. The multimeter, there it is. If we were to craft a multimeter, which is a gold ingot at 6 karat, redstone alloy, 2 copper, when you click on the capacitor, it will tell you how much energy is stored in that capacitor, whether it's, if it's capable of 64 joules, it'll tell you, hey, it's at 37 or whatever it happens to be. All right. Furnaces, nice. The gold pan, dustpan, crucibles. So here's the crucibles. You can see some of the crucibles do require, though, a substantial amount of energy. So the problem with running an electrified crucible for a lava generator is that it actually takes more than a lava generator can make. So it might not be a great idea. In that case, you might want to look at other options. Heated pressure chambers, coal generators is what we're running, pulverizer. Okay, so to get going, my recommendation for power is most likely solar is not going to be something you're going to be doing off the bat, simply because you need a lot of quartz, you need a lot of ferrosilicon, you're going to need a lot of iron. And it's probably not something, glass, so it's probably not something you're going to have a ton of resources out of the beginning. I would recommend, if you've got access to coal, I would start with a coal generator first and only power it when you actually need it. Don't let coal keep going in there and burning when you have no need. And you think, well, it's going to just store up. It's going to store up 64 joules worth for all that equipment I have. That's 4 seconds and then I'm out of power. So don't run the generator if you don't actually need to. Then I would start working towards solar. Keep the other generator for night, your coal generator for night. Use the solar one during the day. and then eventually start working your way up towards the energized solar generator. That way it runs at night. Once your base is well established, and I'll tell you what, at some point in this series, we'll go over the SkyGrid base, and I'll show you what I mean by well established before you're really running a lot of energized solar generators. Then you're talking nuclear and or nether star. So a couple other things that you do need to understand with power in Slimefun. There is a limitation to how far the network can transfer power, as well as transferring data within the cargo manager. You'll see where the regulator is right here. You'll see where the power source is. If I want to daisy chain this power source, and let's say I had 50 different machines I wanted to line up, the power from the power source will go 6 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At this point, this is powered. I can send it another 6 blocks. So if I put another capacitor here, it would pick up the power. If I put it on block 7, it won't. So we're going to show something here. Now that was simply put to store extra power within the network. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We're going to give that a second just to show you that it can power up. And I should probably, let's see, that's going out. I wanted to stop power from coming in here just to charge that even faster. That'll stop cobble from going in. We'll take the cobble out. There we go. Okay, so you see how it's charging. We are 6 blocks away. So yellow means it's somewhere between 0 and 100. We're at 3/4 high. There we go. So that charged up pretty quickly. Let's go block 7. Okay, so I just made a liar out of myself. So I know for sure the cargo manager is 7, or 6, I mean. Power appears to be a little bit further. Let's see if it'll go 8. Okay, so my apologies, guys. The cargo manager, you can send item 6, but power is 7. So that's 8 blocks away from the other capacitor. So if I bring it back one more, and you saw how fast it charged, it's simply because there's nothing else drawing power right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can extend power 7 blocks away with capacitors. Cargo networks we'll talk about in the next episode. That's a different number. That one is 6. Anything else that you need to know? So the regulator just has to be on the network regardless of how many power sources, how many capacitors you have. You only need one regulator on the network. That is it. So you can see right now how much extra power is stored within this network. So we've got full capacity on both of our capacitors. We got full capacity stored up in the cold generator. And then anything else in here that can store power is storing power. But the moment I plop another power heavy machine on this thing's done. So, as Dr. Boomer, PhD of Science says, you gotta go Boomer or you gotta go home. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Tune in next time for Cargo Networks.